So I got one question today. What is it going to take for Oklahoma Sooner fans to be excited and happy about what they're doing and exactly where they're wanting to take this program over the next couple of years, especially on the defensive line? Because I get it. Oklahoma, they missed on a couple guys in 2023, but 2024, the cycle we're in right now, Oklahoma seems to be in prime position to be able to go out there and not land just one, but maybe two or three 5 stars. Then in 2026, or 2025, you really ask yourself, where can Oklahoma go next? So my question is, what's it going to take for you guys to stop with the Todd Bates hate and slander? What does he have to do to make you guys a believer and not only the developer that he is on the defensive line, but the recruiter that he can be? But guys, before we dive into it, before we talk about it, go ahead and hit that like and hit the subscribe button. Jump down in the comments below. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are. I want to hear what you guys think. What are your thoughts? What is it going to take for Todd Bates to basically stop getting all the hate, to stop getting all the slander? And we're going to start in 2023 because in 2023, yes, Oklahoma missed on a couple guys. Probably most notably was the one in David Hicks, the 5-star defensive lineman that ended up going to Texas A&M. But can you really knock Todd Bates for losing the number 1 overall defensive lineman to Texas A&M, who we feel like has been known to pay players? Like, do you really have to hate on him that much when we felt like we had a silent commitment all the way up to pretty much the final minute, and then that decision ended up being A&M? It wasn't that Todd Bates wasn't a bad recruiter. Todd Bates at one point had him, and then at the final hour, a money bag came in, and David Hicks, you guys know the story. And I get it. You missed out on Jordan Renaud. But if you're Oklahoma, you should feel good that you didn't lose Jordan Renaud to a Kansas. You lost Jordan Renaud in a top 2 battle to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Literally, Jordan Renaud was one of the things he was looking for was, where can I go and be developed? You lost it to Alabama. You were right there in the mix. Right there in the mix. You should feel good about that. Now, yes, you can look at other ones like Marcus Deal, maybe Edric Hill, and say, hey, Oklahoma lost those guys. Yes, because they prioritized other targets and, they missed out. But that happens, right? You're going to always prioritize other guys, and sometimes you might miss out on other ones, and then it comes back to bite you in the rear. But that's where I think Todd Bates and the staff have kind of learned their lesson, because in 2024, you see them really focusing on everybody, but still giving the 5 stars the attention that they deserve. And you look at it and go, well, what's it going to take for the class for Oklahoma in 2024 to get started on the defensive line? Because, yes, Wyatt Gilmore might not tip the needle to get these guys to commit, but what happens if a David Stone commits? What happens? What happens when a 5-star of that caliber, a guy with that kind of talent, commits to the University of Oklahoma, and recruits across the nation look at it and go, what's going on there? Why did he pick Oklahoma over Miami or Texas A&M or Texas or Alabama or Georgia or whoever? Right? You ask that question. Maybe the better person for this conversation would be Williams Nwaneri because, well, David Stone's a homegrown kid, right? So maybe a Williams Nwaneri draws a little bit more attention in that aspect. But regardless, a 5-star defensive lineman of that caliber definitely brings that attention, right? It demands that attention from these defensive players. And so, yeah, maybe that's what it takes. It takes one of those 5-star guys to commit for the cup to basically pour over and all the water to start flowing out. And you look in 2024, which we've talked about many times. We've talked about the potential of what this class could look like. And you guys have heard my predictions. I think it's going to be a David Stone, Williams Nwaneri. I think you get Nigel Smith. And then I think that 4th spot could probably go to Dominic McKinley, or you get Jaden Jackson, one of those guys. Now, if you land all 5 interior defensive linemen, I think you're probably sitting really well. And then in 2025, maybe you can short yourself on an interior defensive lineman if they're not a 5-star, right? just because you took 5 in this class. And then you look at the edge position. You could have Danny Okoye, Zena Yumio Azulu. Right now, you already have Gilmore. The opportunities and the potential are endless for the Oklahoma Sooners and exactly what they could build in this class. And that's, again, I'm asking you the question. What does Todd Bates have to do to end the hate? Is it land a David Stone, a Nigel Smith, and a Jaden Jackson? Is that good enough? Or is it, no, Todd Bates has to go out there and land David Stone, Nigel Smith, and Williams Nwaneri? Because, or at least one of the, or two of the 3 5-stars, whatever combo that is. Is that what it takes? Because that's what I'm asking you, because I see it all the time. I hear other people on other channels talk about it. What is it going to take for the Todd Bates hate to stop? And I say this because I go into 2025 and I start kind of browsing this section of, hey, we're getting to December, so maybe I need to start looking at it. Maybe I need to start kind of entertaining the idea of what this class might look like in 2025. And I start with the defensive line because, well, it's been Oklahoma's pain point, and it's the pain point that hasn't been really fixed yet. And I look at it and go, Oklahoma's already offered the number 1 and number 2 defensive linemen in that class, and Elijah Griffin and Armando Blunt, or Blunt, I think that's how you say it. Elijah Griffin, the 6'5", 285-pound defensive lineman out of Savannah, Georgia, probably one of the more coveted kids. I think a lot of people will probably say, well, I expect him to go to Georgia, but you guys know my take. I don't think Georgia recruits their state that well. I know they have Dylan Raiola in the class, but guess what? Dylan Raiola was not originally from Georgia, so I don't really count him as a guy from Georgia. And you guys catch what I'm saying. Elijah Griffin might potentially end up somewhere else. Is this 2025? Is that the year that you see Oklahoma really, and you see Todd Bates really burst on the recruiting scene? Because David Stone, like I just said, hometown grown boy. I think we all expect him to be here. And yeah, Ulane Williams, Nigel Smith, that's a great class. But what if you could go in 2025 and land a guy like Elijah Griffin? And I know we're really sunshine pumping here. We are really giving our hopes up. But entertain this for a second. Todd Bates, what if he could go out there and do that? Because he's done it before. He did it at Clemson. Now, I get it. Clemson's closer to Georgia. It's an easier sell. But what if Oklahoma goes out there and spurts off 11 wins, goes to a college football playoff? And you laugh at me. But that potential's there for Oklahoma to do that, because you look at their schedule and they're going to be favored probably in 10 or 11 of those games. And if Oklahoma goes to the Big 12 championship and let's say they lose to Texas in the regular season, are we sure Texas is going to be able to beat Oklahoma twice in a row? And I say that because, yes, I know it was during the Lincoln Riley era, but I've yet to see a team be able to beat Oklahoma 2 times in one season. I hadn't seen it. And so if Oklahoma loses to Texas in the regular season and then goes to the Big 12 championship, beats Texas, well, could they be positioning themselves for a college football playoff spot with 12 wins? I'm just saying, you position yourself in that way and the defense looks improved, which we all know it will. I have confidence that Venables and this staff, and with the master developer that Bates is on the defensive line, he will have these guys ready to play, even with the little that he has, because I think that's another important thing to understand. What Todd Bates has on the defensive line is very little, right? As the years start to weigh on, and he gets more of his guys in here, you're going to see a completely different defensive line, bigger dudes, especially as you head into the SEC. And so I look at the 2025 class where Oklahoma could be getting a guy like Kamori Moore or Upunku from Denton Geyer. Those are all real possibilities. And then you look up at the top of the class with those 5-stars and go, could Todd Bates at least land one of those? And that's why I asked the question. Because if Todd Bates only lands 1 5-star in the class of 2024, but goes out there and lands some solid 4-star guys like a Nigel Smith or a Jaden Jackson and maybe somebody else in there, right? Is that good enough for people to go, we're not going to hate on Todd Bates because he's done what he's supposed to. He landed us a 5-star. Because it's recruiting. Anything can happen. As great as we feel about Williams-Nwaneri, as much as Parker Thune, who talks to the camp a lot and understands that recruitment really well, feels good about Williams-Nwaneri, you guys know it. It could flip and overturn overnight. And so if that's the case and that happens, if he only lands one guy, and it's only, well, if he only lands one 5-star, gets 3 defensive linemen in this class, how do you feel? What are your thoughts? Would you still continue to hate on Todd Bates? Because I know other programs across the country would love to have Todd Bates, specifically one in Tuscaloosa of his alma mater would probably love to have Todd Bates there as a recruiter. And Oklahoma fans definitely wouldn't want to see Todd Bates on those sidelines because, well, being at a more prestigious program, I'm going to say more prestigious because they've won more national championships as of recently, so they have the recency bias. Yeah, he'd probably be able to put in some work. So, guys, I want to hear from you. Go ahead, jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are. What's it going to take for the Todd Bates hate to stop?